We're going to give 3 causes, as it were, for success, right? Concentration, consistency, and cooperation. And the final one is cooperation. What is cooperation? Forget philosophy. What is cooperation? If this was an ordinary business meeting and someone says, what is cooperation? What would you say?
Getting agreement.
Getting agreement. What else? Yep. One of the common answers we often get is?
Do things together.
Doing things together for a common goal, and so on and so forth. So cooperation is people acting together towards a common goal. Makes sense. But again, remember that this is the subjective domain. We're not talking about what happens out there. If you want others to cooperate, what do you have to do? So this is what he talks about. He defines cooperation as the spirit of cooperative endeavour. We often, again, start to define cooperation only in external terms. What we want to do is define cooperation in internal terms. So cooperation is nothing other than the recognition that I cannot achieve anything by myself. When I have this, not just as we were discussing earlier, not just as a piece of information, but when I have it as insight and aha, it's so true, I can't achieve anything by myself. What does that mean now? It means that not only do I recognize that this is true for me as an individual, it's true for all of us. As I recognize that I need everybody else's efforts to support my success, what happens is I naturally become cooperative for others. I recognize this fundamental principle functioning for all of us. And so developing the spirit of cooperative endeavour is essential if I want cooperation from my activities, because cooperation is reciprocal. Right? It stems from another more fundamental principle. He says love is reciprocal. Love is reciprocal means what? Contagious, yeah. The moment you recognize genuine love from another person, it's impossible. To that extent that you recognize it, you will reciprocate. Put it another way, when you recognize that someone is functioning towards you without ego, with no selfish interest, no selfish demand on their part, what happens to your own ego? It just falls away. If you meet someone and you can see that they've got an ulterior motive, you immediately put a barrier up. You walk into a showroom and the salesman walks up to you and says, "You look fantastic in that blouse, it looks lovely on you." Immediately you know he's just trying to butter you up, to soften you up, to get you to buy his product. Immediately you go, "Yeah, it's not mine. Thank you." But you don't want to relate to that person. So too, imagine you're at your workplace and you know someone who is genuinely cooperative. They see, before you even ask, if they see you struggling with something, you need help? They just naturally want to help deploy their efforts for your success. When you know someone like that, what's your natural response? Is that you too want to reciprocate. And let's say that person all of a sudden has a project they need to be finished off in a hurry. They will be inundated with help from others because they have a natural sense of cooperation in them. So too, if I want to, as you say, get agreement from others, get the cooperation of others, telling people, asking people is not enough. If I have a natural spirit of cooperative endeavour to all of the people that I work with, the natural response is that they will want to cooperate with me. It's not coercion. It's a natural effect. Now, going back to our earlier example, it's really important to recognise you can't fake it. You can't pretend to be cooperative in order to get cooperation back. Because we all have pretty good nonsense detectors. You can use your own word here. Right, you can tell when someone's faking it. In fact, there's a great quote that Sunanaji used a couple of weeks ago. She said, if you try to make an impression, that's the impression you make. You're trying, you're putting too much, you're forcing it, you're not being natural. You can tell when the person's faking it to try and impress you. And as a consequence, you see the person's not being genuine, so there's not that genuine response. And so if I'm faking my spirit of cooperative endeavour, others will notice. So this guy pretends that he wants to help us. He's not really, he's just interested in getting his own work done. So what we have to do is to develop an interest in other people's success. That naturally arises when we recognise the truth of life, that nothing can be done by oneself. So then this sort of again comes back to what you were talking about. How do we develop that feeling in the mind of wanting to share in other people's and contribute to others' success? It comes via knowledge. The moment I recognise none of us can achieve anything without the support of others, of each other, we're all in this together, then I naturally have that feeling, and it naturally flows out of me, it naturally flows back. So this is the third aspect. And so that knowledge is the intellect's correct understanding. And again, it's not just that surface piece of information, it's the deeper level of insight. And that insight comes through constant reflection. So this is this morning or this daily study practice that we engage in. It's the thing that's better than just mere knowledge is wisdom. Okay, so there's our summary. Productivity demands objectivity. We gain that through development of intellect and pursuit of an ideal. And success in action has three causes: concentration, consistency, and cooperation. All right, any other questions before we conclude?